my decision making.
Yeah.
As an individual, as a human being, it's rooted from an intention, a positive intention, and it's not rooted from ego.
Every person has got a unique value proposition that they bring.
Absolutely.
So count yourself first, because if you're not going to count yourself, who else will?
Hello, and welcome to the third episode of the ICT Dynamic Women Podcast. This is the trilogy. Very excited. First of all, thank you so much for all the support you've been giving us for all the past 2 episodes. That has been fantastic. We are here today, obviously. I am your girl with my friends from Bobbi Brown. Today, I had the pleasure of getting my face beat Friday with none other than Bobbi Brown.
I feel quite excited. I feel that it is about time that within the ICT space, the woman's voice is heard, is listened to and taken into account. I'm looking forward to a bold, dynamic conversation, exciting, and really women also having fun, right? Because everything that we do, we need to just embody with the spirit of just building each other, having fun, sharing insights, little nuggets. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
I am so excited to join the podcast today with Swangils and the Dynamic Women in ICT today. What I most look forward to is really just sharing my journey, sharing why it is important to celebrate women, why it's important for us to tell our stories, for other women to also share theirs, and to have the courage to just stand up and celebrate themselves. So that's what I look forward the most to today.
I'm excited to talk to Lerato about authentic leadership, excited to talk to Naomi about what it means to be an ICT dynamic woman, because her and Lerato have held the baton for us until this year. Hello, and welcome to the third episode of the ICT Dynamic Women Podcast, the show where we not only unmask, but celebrate the voices, stories, and the journeys of women shaping the future of ICT in the South African landscape and beyond. I am your host, Swangils, and today's episode is all about purpose-driven leadership, resilience, and building a brand that creates real impact. My guest today is none other than Lerato Pule, a powerhouse chartered accountant, a strategic leader, and a dynamic turnaround specialist with over 2 decades in the finance space, ICT, retail banking, telecoms, and more. Lerato is not just a leader in boardrooms. She's a bold advocate for authenticity, sustainability, and value-driven growth. I don't want to waste more time because I have been looking forward to this conversation. So let's get to it. Welcome, Lerato.
Thank you, Swangils, and thank you to your viewers.
And thank you so much for joining us today and gracing us with your presence.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, a lot of times we get straight into the accolades. We get straight into what have you achieved. I just want to know, I want us to start off about with your journey. Who is Lerato? Where did it all start? From finance and leading into the ICT space. But before then, who is Lerato?
Okay. Swangils, I always like to go back to my grassroots, right? I'm from a very value-centered home where integrity and hard work has been non-negotiable. I was raised by a single parent, and there was actually 6 of us. And she actually showed me kind of where resilient starts, right?
Yeah.
I'm actually a daughter of the soil, right? I'm a village girl. I grew up in the farms. I learned things, how you do them authentically.
Yeah.
And then once after that, I found myself navigating the boardrooms, and I recently gone back to saying that, you know what, I find my grounding within where I come from.
Yes.
And you're going to hear later on in terms of my farming. But really, my journey started when I was quite very curious.
Yes.
I was curious about how do we solve problems? How do we actually engage with each other? And I found myself that I was drawn into finance because it kind of like, for me at that time, there were a few of us. I saw with the people that were doing it, it brought structure in their lives, and it helped them actually grow within who they are, Swangils. But for me, it was all about how do I bring structure in my life, in my community, and how do I actually make an impact as an individual moving forward. It's a little bit about me. My beliefs haven't changed really in growing up from where I was to where I'm going with my life. Where I believe in authenticity, in excellence, and also in doing the things that last in one's life, right? So it's a little bit about Lerato, farm girl, navigating boardrooms, back to farm girl again.
Yeah.
So,
And we're going to touch a little bit on that later, right?
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you said, you know, coming from what one would say humble backgrounds, right? When you're saying from a humble background where it's all about nature, it's all about farming, all about community and sustainability. Now you are now building your brand. You are now in the finance space, and then eventually you then evolve into the ICT space where you've turned around some of the most difficult situations within your career. I just want to know, built on those values, you know, how has that shaped your leadership style?
Really, maybe I like how you touched on shaped my career and also a brand as a leader, right?
Yeah.
There's been quite significant moments in my career that has really, really grown me as a leader, as a human being. More importantly, one defining moment was when I finalized and led the recapitalization of Cell C.
Sure, that was a big one.
Yes, 2.4 billion, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it was that it wasn't only the technical aspect of the transaction, but it was quite very emotional. It showed the human element, and it tested every value as a human being, right? Because it was quite intense. Everybody wants to get to the deadline. There's so many things to do. The emotion is involved. There are different characters involved. So that, I think, it was one of my biggest significant event on my life. So another one was basically when I was leading the transformation at BCX.
Yes.
Quite a very tricky
Another
one.
big one.
Another big one,
Yeah.
right? So where we realized to save 460 million in terms of the transformation. But for me, I thought it brought to light that finance is just not about numbers. Finance is about the impact that we can make, the levers that we can pull, and actually the change that we can make in an organization overall.
Absolutely.
So, and in being a leader within the ICT environment, is that as a woman, it can be quite very lonely, right? So one thing is that it has sharpened me in terms of who I am, my strategic voice, because we need to learn that as women also, is that when do you actually move, and the kind of moves that you make, the bold ones, the silent ones, because that's quite very important. But then I just wanted to make sure that if as women we're not invited to the table.
The table, yeah.
We make our own table and we bring our fellow colleagues, our peers to the table, and we redefined who we are, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about brand, I always say that in terms of my brand, I always believe that it was forged under quite enormous pressure.
Yeah.
But it has always been anchored by my values, who I am as an individual. What do I stand for? What the principles that I really, really appreciate in my life? And going back to my grassroots.
Yeah.
And that has always been who Lerato is.
And I absolutely love how you touch on, the complex, turnarounds you've had to do. I mean, for me, of course, knowing you, one of them for us was BCX. And I always thought to myself, how is she going to turn the ship around? And I mean, in as much as we say, collaborative effort amongst us as leaders, you've really managed to say in these high powered and high intense environments and the complexity of it all, you've managed to come through with your grace. And I love the way that you say you need a strategic voice, right? Because sometimes we show up differently. And then when we go home, we say, why did I react like that today? Why did I scream? It's not me, And you've always been known to come in and not only lay the facts, but also gracefully deliver the facts and deliver the turnaround. But what has been, looking at just that, you've touched on being alone. Sometimes it feels alone as a leader, and a woman leader in the ICT space. When you look at those, how have these moments strengthened your voice and your brand in the industry, really?
I think more than anything, it has led me to dig deeper into who I am, and has led me to strengthen, how do I put it, the people that are around me, who I associate myself with. It has led me to say humility goes a long way. And also more importantly, in terms of how do you plant the seeds of grace, right? At the point where you're thriving, because one day you're going to need that shade of grace.
Yeah.
So over time, you need to learn how to do that.
And I guess that's the African proverb then, is true, to say always take care of the tree, because you never know when you're going to need its shade, right? So if I look at just women, let's talk more around women in the ICT industry. I mean, you've led teams, transformational teams. You've gone in, you've had to lead people, because obviously for you to deliver on such big, what I'll call ticket items, but really career-defining moments, what would you say is the most powerful contribution that women bring to the table?
Most of the time, the dialogue between women and men, it can get a bit toxic, right?
Yeah.
And I always say that as women, we bring a different perspective, right? We bring different experiences, but also we forge into better collaboration within the workspace, and also with our male counterparts. So we bring that kind of authenticity, the kind of sustainability, how we move along in terms of corporate.
Yes.
But also we bring the grace that is required, because they say put a woman anyway, they will multiply anything that they touch. But I want to emphasize it's not only the women that are instrumental in this, but the male counterparts, because I've stood on shoulders of male counterparts that have made my life a bit easier. They have championed my brand. They have sponsored who I am today. So it's all about fostering collaboration as women, but making sure that we do not leave our male counterparts behind.
I absolutely love what you're saying, because my argument is always we are in 2025 and we have been talking about how do we make sure that the next generation is comfortable enough to understand that getting into these spaces, boardrooms, even if it's just it's not about we are fighting against each other as genders, but more around the collaborative part and how we work together. And I absolutely love how you've put it, to say you've stood on shoulders of giants, both male and female, and it's very important that we bring that to the fore. Now, Lerato, this is something I've always wanted to know. Now, you've seen all angles of the sector. You've seen companies that have needed rescue. You've seen companies that are thriving. You're possibly saying, give me the next challenge. What more can I do here? But what we never talk about, the different sectors. I mean, right now, yes, there's a whole lot of conversation around what is the impact of digital transformation, etc. But you've been in the forefront of the numbers. You have seen what the ICT sector and its broadness, because you've been you've seen most pockets of the ICT industry. When you look at its impact from an innovation perspective and just its contribution to the economic development of the country, what would you say that is, and how do we then also put that or emphasize on that more?
Yeah. I think ICT was once just a buzzword some way, but until you realize that ICT is the nervous system of our economic growth, right?
Yeah.
In terms of from building entrepreneurship, innovation, and just access to a digital landscape overall.
Yes.
I've worked in organizations such as Cell C and also Liquid Telecom South Africa, where I just really saw how digital infrastructure has enabled and also promoted township economies,
Yes.
how it has grown women-owned businesses, and also, most importantly, what we are struggling with in South Africa is the youth employment.
Absolutely.
So it really makes things easy. It innovates. But for me, importantly, it's that with the sector and the things that we're doing is that it really fosters inclusive growth.
Yes.
So therefore, it tries to break the barriers that has always been there, because the technological landscape access, it's there. So basically, for me, it is basically about how do we actually expand the digital equity across South Africa, and also we really need to be deliberate in our investment, our collaboration, and also how do we shape policy, the leadership around it. So for me, I always like ending it by saying that ICT is not about speed, because people will say, oh, the speed should be this and that. But it's about how many people does it reach.
Yes.
That is quite fundamental. And also in terms of the equity that it actually delivers around our community. So that's the role that I'm seeing in this space, how it's going to play out.
And I love how you've touched on equity. Just last episode, we were talking about the digital divide, and we were saying, how do we solve for that in the South African landscape? I mean, the South African landscape really gives us for me, it's a playground, and also it's got opportunity for that equitable access. But we never really, I think we start and then we never finish. And as you touched, from a policy shift perspective, how do we actually ensure that there is more reach? You spoke about the township economy, which is very close to my heart, because I always say, from a Soweto girl, I always say, I see so much potential, but how do we now ensure that we give those entrepreneurs, not only from a township perspective or peri-urban, even from a rural perspective, how do we give them more access for them to reach and have access to other markets and not only South Africa? So I think that's also important.
I always say that it's all about the political will. when it comes to that, because as long as you have the political will, you'll have the right policy in place that is simplified, easy for execution and implementation by people on the ground. So it starts there, but also not to leave things within the political landscape.
Yeah.
We need a willing private sector that can help in terms of the thinking mind, in terms of implementation, because the policy drafters are quite good,
Yes.
but sometimes you find that in a policy drafter, you do not have an implementer.
Yeah.
So that is where the private sector comes into play, and making sure that the simplicity in terms of how we implement what the policy is trying to drive through is there.
And it's all about implementation.
Yeah.
And let's take it to, we spoke about farming earlier, we spoke about grassroots. I am really interested to know, where is this coming? You know, you, as you say, one can now pick it up and say, okay,
Yeah.
I'm bringing in, this is where I am. But as you are playing these roles, so you are still a powerhouse within the ICT space, and now into farming. How did you start exploring this? What started this?
All right. Farming. I'm a farm girl at heart. I grew up in the Northwest in Rustenburg, in a town called Luka. It's mostly a mining town. And I grew up herding goats, right?
Wow.
And my uncle raised us. And then we left Rustenburg, we came to the city, lived in Soweto a bit. And as I've grown up, as I'm growing up and experiencing the corporate sector,
Yeah.
I got to a point where, I had a pause. And the pause was, what is my passion? Yes, I'm passionate about my career, the profession that I've chosen. But what is it else that reminds me of who I am?
Yes.
And I got reminded in terms of how I used to be at peace and at my ultimate when I was at home. And then I started to talk to my uncle, who's a farmer, but we do communal farming, obviously.
Yes.
And he encouraged me to say that, why don't you come back home, build a little shack in your and then start farming.
Yeah.
Farming is not for retirement. There's a lot that you can do within that space.
That space.
So that's how I got back to in terms of farming. And it was a point where I was resetting, right? I was at a place of reset once I took a little bit of a break from the corporate center. And then, and also it was after years of high pressured roles where I had to really step back, reconnect into something that is meaningful in my life, that reminds me of who I am, the essence of self.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you get, I'm saying obviously, I'm assuming, which is bad. But what I'm saying, what I need to ask is, and this has been the burning question in my mind, is, are you bringing what are you bringing from your ICT world now into your new world, or shall we say your other world? Because it's
Yeah, the emphasis is that I'm not leaving the ICT space.
Absolutely,
right?
yes, yeah.
But I just feel that within the farming space, agri-tech is quite very important. And why is that? Because it will allow us to have precision farming and be able to track our procurement processes, our supply processes. Because I think and obviously in most Black farming communities, that hasn't been really quite of our focus point in terms of commercializing.
Yeah.
But for me, I think that as part of my legacy, I would want, in merging the ICT and farming, to create transformation. And that is quite very important. And then also making sure that it is a sustainable journey for our people. Because in most instances, you find that people do farming, but then there's no direction. Black people, in most instances, there's no direction. It is from the farm to the table, and people see it as a hobby, while it's not. But I really do believe that and when I say agri-tech, I'm referring to things as, using drones to measure how far our cattle are grazing, right? Using trackers in terms from a risk perspective of stock theft. As we know, South Africa is hurdled with stock theft. Using cameras to monitor in terms of the environment that we're in. So there's a lot of the combination within agri-tech that's going to actually help us as new farmers, as existing farmers, farmers that want to scale in terms of making sure that sustainability in the field that we are at actually exists.
And it brings you back to the community, right?
Yeah.
Building with the, I personally can't wait to see how that space unfolds. I have no doubt it's going to unfold beautifully for you. And I mean, whilst we're talking about that, let's you know, before we end off, just talking about yourself, 2025. You know, we've touched a bit on, you know, you then venturing a bit into farming, however, still remaining within the ICT space. But besides all of that, besides the boardrooms and everything else, what is on your 2025 vision board?
I used to hate that question.
Yes.
You know, when you first went for interviews, right? And they tell us your 5-year plan on your 3-year plan. Every time you're like,
no,
dude, I'm just trying to land the job, right? But maybe I'm saying that personally, it was on my, if I have to summarize it, on my vision board is that I want to deepen my connection with nature. And really my roots are through this farming, because one thing about it is that it has grounded me. I thought I had humility until I had to chase a goat. And you had to immunize it, and you had to literally love it. Because that was it was keeping me going. But also it reminded me in terms of the beauty of slowing down. Because I think I've been in such high-paced environments that one never stops unless the body forces you to stop, right? Professionally, I'm going to be returning to corporate, serving on more boards. I believe that with the experience that I have gained and the turnarounds that I have made in most organizations, it's going to actually come through quite valuable. But more importantly is that I like to focus on mentoring the young women and also advocating for governance as a tool for growth. Because I think most of the things that we start, we leave governance be-hind, and the cracks they start showing when we're about to say we're there and we realize that we're actually not there. Also, I'm really exploring agri-entrepreneurship. And to really commercialize. Now I've stabilized at my farm, which is in a communal land that is Bafokeng, and really using it as a vehicle for food security, as we know that it is one of the things that challenge us in South Africa and globally, and making sure that as a Black farmer, we've got a sustainable commercial model. So those are the things that I'm really looking at in my vision board currently right now, combining everything, making sure that the mind, the body, and they actually align on who I am.
No, that's absolutely beautiful to hear. So I guess we've spoken drones, we've spoken farming, we've spoken sustainability, we've spoken about, you know, challenging the status quo. Looking into your reads for the year, I mean, I'm always excited to hear, what are you reading? What's exciting for you in the tech space right now? I mean, yes, we've touched on drones, but what is exciting for you and what are you reading?
You know, you're going to be quite shocked, because in the time that I've had to reflect, to think about where my journey is, and finding my spirituality, is that one of the books that I read was The Heart of the Soul. And for me, what was important, it was that it was teaching me about how to lead from alignment. Okay, for me, in terms of making sure that everybody that's on the bus,
Yeah.
as you're the driver,
Yeah.
is okay, right? It's by Gary Zukav. So for me, that is my read. But another thing, I talked a little bit more about reflection.
Yeah.
I've learned in terms of having, whether it's weekly reflection, whether it's the middle of the day kind of reflection, because it just ensures that my decision making
Yeah.
as an individual, as a human being, it's rooted from an intention, a positive intention, and it's not rooted from ego. Because in most instances, we forget that. We're taken by what is happening today. We're influenced by other people's emotions.
So it's emotionally charged.
It's emotionally charged. So really, that's what where I'm finding myself these days.
No, this is fantastic.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just before I let you go, last year we had the honor of, celebrating you and honoring you as the ICT Dynamic Woman of 2024. Just as a parting shot, just to know, how was that for you and how was that experience for you? Because, I mean, sometimes as we say, on the show, we're trying to unmask and celebrate the voices, but just to hear it from you, how was that for you?
It was dynamic. It was quite humbling.
Yeah.
Because we never actually get to sit back and reflect on our life's journey, but also in terms of other people's journeys and the lives that they have had, and encountering quite dynamic women,
Yes.
purposeful women, driven women. And for me, it brought a lot of humility in my life. And it showed me, in terms from a gratitude perspective, that life has offered me and granted me with a lot of gifts.
Yeah.
And that I need to give back intentionally so.
Wow. No, that's absolutely beautiful. Lerato, thank you so much for honoring us today and for just your beautiful, beautiful way of sharing your journey with us. It is the most powerful, way of sharing these stories. I personally wish you all the best as you stay with us in the ICT world, of course, and also, as you say, venturing into the farming space. So all the best for 2025, and thank you so much for honoring us with your presence.
Thank you so much, Swangils, and I wish this platform the very best, because what you are doing is quite intentional, but it's going to be so important for the girls of tomorrow to see us building each other and growing each other over time.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lerato. And there you have it. That's today's episode. Authenticity, resilience, and purposeful driven leadership from Lerato Pule. I am your host, Swangils Martino. Thank you for joining us today. Join us again in the next episode, where we uncover and celebrate dynamic women within the ICT space. Thank you. So last year, we had the pleasure of honoring women in the ICT sector, powerhouses that are challenging the status quo and are making waves within that sector. We had the ICT Dynamic Women Luncheon, where we honored the women in the ICT sector. And thank you for Telkom Future Makers for making that possible for us as well last year as one of our sponsors, and the Radisson for, of course, hosting us. So today with me, I have one of the women that I had the pleasure of sharing the stage with. She was also our keynote speaker for the event, the ICT Dynamic Women Luncheon. Today with me, I have Naomi Thompson, who is here to actually talk to us about what it means to be an ICT Dynamic Woman. Naomi, welcome, and thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Hello, everyone, and thank you very much. Thank you very much, Swangils, for having me on your platform today.
No, thank you so much. Naomi, last year, what a phenomenal event, if I have to say so myself. I mean,
Wow.
that is one of the luncheons you never want to miss. What a phenomenal event. And I think, you know, without putting words in your mouth, I want to hear it from you. How was that event for you? And what did it mean for you to be honored as one of ICT's dynamic women?
The event was amazing. It really was. It was so powerful to be surrounded by inspiring women, women who are moving and shaking the ICT industry, and women that are just so authentic about their leadership and what it is that they bring to the industry.
Yeah.
So besides the event, for me, it was the relationships that we forged.
Yeah.
You being one of them. Sitting,
100.
and I remember we met because we went to the wrong Radisson, and that was a friendship formed right there.
Yeah.
But I think that it's more than just an award, it's a movement.
And Naomi, you know, a lot of people would then say, oh, ICT Dynamic Woman, this is what I do. You come in from a different industry. You come in from the legal fraternity. Tell us more about what you do. I mean, you also do great work, and then you've got your podcast as well.
Yeah.
Tell us more about the brand behind Naomi. Who is Naomi?
Of course. So I always ask, what does a lawyer and technology have in common, right?
Yeah.
And even sitting here today, I was like, but you do know that I'm not in the ICT industry, but law cannot operate outside of technology. So what I do, I'm an innovation strategist in the legal fraternity. What does that mean? I help lawyers look at technology differently. How do I use technology to deliver to my clients?
Yeah.
How do I implement AI solutions or any of the various type of legal tech that is available in our industry? So I do thought leadership around it. I help people understand how they can use it. I consult to lawyers to help them. Now they want to start implementing technology, but they have no idea where to start.
Yeah.
So I kind of call it operating at that intersection of law, leadership, and technology.
And I love the fact that you're saying you're bringing innovation into the space, right? I mean, I went into one of, one attorney's office, and it was papers everywhere. That's it.
The files are right up until there, right?
Yeah.
How are you going to manage your caseload effectively if everything is paper-based, if it's not digitized?
Yeah.
We cannot remember everything on our own, right? You cannot take years of cases and now synthesize it, because the rate at which business operates is so fast. When you go to your lawyer, whether it's an in-house legal counsel or whether it's your law firm, you need an answer now. In order for you to make a quick decision. You can't have your lawyer that says, where's my books? That's, you know, those beautiful books that they have, right? But we need an addition to how we deliver services. And that's where technology comes in.
And I mean, you've touched on AI, and you say, you know, how do we now utilize AI?
Yeah.
One would say it's a buzzword.
Yeah.
One would say, I'm afraid of that.
Yeah.
One would say it's actually making us lazy from a human thinking perspective. What would you say, how has that enhanced your work within this fraternity?
Of course. When something is new, people are always afraid of it. There are a lot of misconceptions around it.
Which will then have your digital laggards.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. There may be some truth to certain things. Maybe it will make us lazy, but I always believe that it is a tool that we use to enhance our own intelligence. You can't have technology without the human. It's a human intelligence with the artificial intelligence.
And it is a learning machine after all.
Of course. And you know what the lawyers are so afraid of, but I think many industries are, is AI going to replace me?
Yes.
And that is one of the misconceptions that we really have to break down. It's like, no, AI is never going to replace us. But the people who uses AI or who use technology will replace the ones that do not. Get used to it. When email came in, when it was faxes back in the day.
Hey, yeah. And I mean, when we touch on all of this and we're talking technology and introducing that in the space, I'm always looking at what role women play within the space, because we are all about unmasking and celebrating the voices in the ICT space. And I just wanted, with you here today, if there's a young woman or, young, old, whichever way, but if it's women watching this, what would you encourage them to, do for them to be, maybe they're hiding behind, the corporate spaces or behind their own startups and feeling like, I'm not as dynamic. What would you say, what would you advise them to do? To say, come through and let us maybe recognize you as an ICT dynamic woman for 2025.
Yeah. We have to celebrate ourselves first.
Yeah.
We have to look at what do I bring to the table, and we all have value. Whether we are an intern that is just starting in an organization or the CEO of an organization, every person has got a unique value proposition that they bring.
Absolutely.
So count yourself first, because if you're not going to count yourself, who else will? The whole world is out there discounting ourselves, telling you you don't deserve to sit at that table.
Yeah.
You do not deserve to walk into this room. You do not deserve to be awarded. So start with saying, I have something that is different to my colleague. I have something that is different to that other company, and find your unique value and say, I'm putting my hand up to be counted. You never know whether you're going to be the person that will be awarded. And even if you are not, you have celebrated yourself. So, hey, take that as a win.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely love that. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. I mean, we are now in 2025. We are about to have our next luncheon in the next couple of months. I am quite sure you will be joining us.
Absolutely. I won't miss it.
No, that would be fantastic. I'm certainly looking forward to it. But before I let you go, just looking at 2025 for you, what's on your board? What is exciting for you in the tech space, particularly leading into the legal world as well?
You know what I'm really excited about? So in August as well, we are launching a Legal Innovation Summit.
That's amazing.
I know. We're bringing thought leaders to come and share and debunk the myths around technology and law, to really start making it a lot more accessible. I've been participating, I've been collaborating with other legal tech startups, with other legal tech thought leaders. And what I've been so excited about is seeing that it's women leading in this space, especially around Africa. Yes, it is a multitude of male and female, but to see the female voices being amplified and saying that I am standing up, I'm showing you how I'm doing it. It's almost them taking that risk and understanding that there are value beyond just being afraid of what to do. So what I also see is the African legal tech community coming up with solutions that is fit for us. So I'm very excited to see how we could leapfrog, how we could take our solutions global, and how we could have a space in the overall tech environment as legal tech, as a standalone solution.
Absolutely looking forward to it. And you will then be sharing these details with us in terms of the summit, etc. Thank you so much, Naomi, for coming through. And I wish you all the best for 2025.
Thank you so very much. It has been my absolute pleasure. And I wish you everything of the best for ICT Dynamic Women. I look forward to the luncheon, and we look forward to celebrating all of those amazing women that will stand up and nominate yourself to be part of this incredible community.
Thank you so much. And there you have it. We are now closing off, signing off what has been an incredible and dynamic episode, the trilogy, as we call it. Thank you so much for all your support and showing us love on the socials. Once again, I'd like to thank our guests today. I'd like to thank the Radisson for hosting us in their beautiful penthouse. Don't forget that we will be running the entries for ICT Dynamic Women for 2025. Don't be shy. Put yourself out there and let us celebrate you. Until next time, thank you.